All righty. I would ask that anybody that could take a quick second and just unmute and let me know that you can see my screen. That would be helpful.
Yes, Meredith.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All righty, here we go. The library has changed dramatically over the last, 11 years, 12 years. For many of you, you may be coming back into the university setting after having a few years away from the library or away from higher ed in general. And if that is the case, you may be looking at library resources and kind of scratching your head and perhaps even panicking just a little bit. Everything became digitized, for one, and that was a huge change that we experienced about 20 years ago. But more importantly, was the advent of what we call a discovery tool. And with the discovery tool, that allowed us to gather information from all corners of the world very, very quickly. Because of this, that has made things like our old card catalog systems antiquated. I mean, I think they're still pretty cool, but it's not something that we use anymore, not even by any stretch of the imagination. Instead, everything now fits into a nice, lovely website. So the goal is to learn how to use the systems efficiently, effectively, and in such a way that it doesn't create a stumbling block for you. You know, you're getting a higher degree, not in information management, but you're getting a higher degree in something very specifically important to you. And we're talking about School of Divinity stuff, so theology, pastoral studies, that sort of thing. We do need you to know how to access the resources that are pertinent for your study, but we don't expect you to be experts on knowing how to navigate these systems. And again, especially for anybody that's coming back into the university after a few years off, this likely could become intimidating. And so I want to, right off the top of the bat here, to let you know that I have zero expectation for anybody coming into the university knowing how to use these systems. I simply do not expect that. These workshops are designed to kind of give a big bang for a buck. You know, the idea is to reach as many people as possible to help you navigate the systems. But the lion's share of work, and there are a few of you that I see in this group that can attest to this. The lion's share of the work typically is done in those one-on-one settings. So we'll talk about that more later on, but there are ways to make one-on-one appointments with either me or with Dean Esther. It's at those times that I feel like students really get their hands on the research that's important to you. And it really helps you to build your own small library from which you'll build your thesis or your dissertation. All right. If you have not done this yet, at some point in time in the very near future, I would highly recommend bookmarking the library homepage. I do have the URL posted on this particular page. You can either jot it down quickly or again, know that this recording will be available to you in a few days. Today, we are going to talk about Primo, which is the discovery tool that I mentioned. Primo, as a discovery tool, acts kind of like a small browser. It's going to allow you access to an exponentially large amount of information compared to what the way we used to do research. So we will talk in depth about Primo. We're going to talk about individual databases. Primo does a great job of looking in almost all of our databases at the same time, but you absolutely will have moments in your study where going into one database really matters. So we'll talk about 3 key ones. just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of how individual databases work. We will talk about research guides. We'll talk about instructional videos, and we'll also talk a little bit about Google Scholar and AI. All right, so right off the top, let's talk about Primo. Again, I have the URL posted up here. There is a guide, LibGuides or research guides, library guides, you can call it whatever you want. But we do create these guides based on the needs that we see students presenting to us. So this is a guide specifically on Primo. So if you decide that you want to dig into the weeds a little bit, just know there's a guide for that, and you can poke around in there. We also have 2 different tutorials. I had a grad assistant who was an absolute amazing grad student who created all kinds of 2, 3, 4-minute long tutorials, basically teaching students how to get from point A to point B in a very quick manner. But anyway, both of these videos were completed by him. All righty. When you use Primo, it's important to realize how the page is set up. It will default to a simple search, which is what you're seeing right now in this example. In this example, I'm looking at the word Trinity. That's all I'm asking it to look for. And you'll see in the results, it's bringing back 380,000 plus results. That's a lot. That's way more than anybody reasonably could sort through. So what we would need to do is figure out how this system best works in order to make a result that's meaningful to you. And something that's actually, doable. Again, you're not going to be able to sort through 380,000 results. So what we would need to do is switch to an advanced search. So again, we're going to go from a simple search, which is one simple bar, to the right-hand side where it says advanced search. We would click that, and it opens a much bigger box for us to play with. And you'll notice that within this particular box, there's another line, and you have the option of adding more lines. You can add as many lines as you want. But what this does is this allows the system to get a better idea of what you want by breaking it into individual words or phrases. So what I've decided to do is I've taken the word Trinity, and I've added a line, and this time I'm asking the system to look for the word Trinity, yes, but I want it to look for it within a biblical context. So I'm adding the word Bible with an asterisk. That little asterisk is important. What that's doing is it's telling the system to bring back anything that has Bible or biblical or Bibles, just anything that has Bible as the first part of the word. I've also decided to apply a few filters. I'm going to go back again. In the simple search, there are no filters added. It's just giving me 380,000 different kinds of resources. So it could be books, ebooks, articles, newspaper clippings, it could be conference proceedings, dissertations. If you can think of all the different ways that information comes at us, that's what it's representing. I mean, it could be websites. It's giving you a ton of results. But let's just pretend that for an assignment that you're working on, you have been asked to keep the results only to peer-reviewed journal articles. So if you see in the bottom left-hand corner, I have applied the filter peer-reviewed journals and articles. And it is important to do both. And the reason is because you can have peer-reviewed journal articles and you can have peer-reviewed journal reviews. Reviews are typically reviews of books, and that's not necessarily going to be the most helpful when you're trying to gather good resources for your writing. And you'll notice that I also added the filter Christianity. Christianity is actually a subject filter, and that was just to make sure I got that giant number of 380,000 down to something much more reasonable. And you'll see that my results now, at the bottom of the screen, are 444. That is perfectly wonderful. There is no magic number that you're going to want to shoot for, but typically if I'm doing a search, if I get somewhere around 1,000, I'm pretty happy with that. So 444, that's perfect. I would stop right where I am and begin to explore those results. So that was a real quick shoot through with Primo. And I am trusting that if you have questions that you will certainly ask me at the end of this presentation, and or you'll make an appointment with me so we can go through it individually with your specific research. But for the sake of time, I am going to move into individual databases. We have a lot. This number is actually not accurate. It's closer to about 300 different databases that the library subscribes to. I will give a bit of thanks to the university. Regent University does an amazing job of resourcing the library in order for us to have the resources needed for our students. The fact that we subscribe to almost 300 different databases is enormous. It's such a gift. I have certainly been in universities where finances were not as carefully shared with the library. So definitely want to, express some appreciation here. So anyway, when you want to go into an individual database, you're going to go into this page where they're listed alphabetically. And you can either just pick the letter that it starts with, or you can type in some keywords in order to get it where you need it to go. In this particular case, I am looking for how many different databases specifically focus on Divinity. And you'll see right here, it's kind of small, but the number is 28. That means that of our almost 300 databases, about 10% of them, excuse me, all heavily focus on Divinity. That doesn't mean that the other 90% do not have resources based on the Divinity, because that's not true. Quite a few resources quite a few of our databases are multidisciplinary. This just means that 28 of them are very specifically focusing on religion, divinity, theology, that sort of thing. One in particular is kind of a fun one. It's Atlas Religion Database with Atlas Serials. They very recently updated their interface. I don't think it's an update. I don't like it. In fact, I'm not too sure many of us like it. It's a little bit more complicated now than it used to be. My grad assistant that I had mentioned before, my former grad assistant, he created a tutorial on how to access this database. And I'll show you where all those videos are shortly. But the long and short of it is Atlas Religion Database with Atlas Serials allows you to do something kind of special. It allows you to search the resources by way of scripture. The way you do that is you access the database, then you go to the Subjects tab. That's going to pop open a downward facing arrow, and you're going to choose Atlas Scripture Search. At that point, you can pick the book, the chapter. You can even pull out verses if you'd like. You add it to the search, and then all the results are going to be on what you've asked it. So you have 1,170 results, all of which talk about Genesis chapter 3. It's a great way to make sure that you are getting your resources specific to the scriptures that you're studying. Another individual database that is special is APA PsycInfo. It is, yes, it's a psychology-based database, but again, you can consider it being multidisciplinary, simply because psychology affects all of our different disciplines. But the thing is with APA PsycInfo is that it also allows you to do something different. This one individual database allows you to search the results by way of methodology. So you notice that that is a filter right here on the page. This is a fantastic tool. Let's say that you are developing your dissertation and you're trying to figure out what method you want to use. And let's just for the sake of an example, let's pretend that you want to do a quantitative um, uh, based study. This would allow you to look at examples of quantitative research just to make sure that you've got your ducks in a row and that you're following a format that's accurate. It is a fantastic tool that lots and lots of students find to be useful. But again, this is the only database that allows you to search at that level. And then one other database that I just want to make sure I'm mentioning to you. Again, we have almost 300, but these three are unique and special. This one is ProQuest Dissertations and Theses at Regent University. What this means is that this is a housing location for all the dissertations and theses that have been published by former students. So it's all the stuff that was approved and allowed somebody to graduate. Again, as you are working through your thesis or your dissertation, it's sometimes very, very encouraging and helpful to look at what passed muster before you. You can even search by way of committee member. So let's just pretend Dr. Flynn is on your committee and you want to see what he approved. You can search within this database for your particular chair and see. And so in this particular example, there are 72 different theses and dissertations that Dr. Flynn helped to chair. All right, moving on to a different part of our agenda. I had mentioned research guides. Guides are sometimes subject specific. Sometimes they're based on simply how to do something, like how to use interlibrary loan, for instance, or how to use citations is another good example. I created a guide. It was based on a conversation actually I had with a former student who had mentioned to me that her best way of learning is by the written word, that videos don't do it for her, that really having a written step-by-step set of instructions was the best way for her to learn. So this particular guide is called Pathways. Looks like this. It walks you through some of the fundamental things that help you to navigate the systems most efficiently. So it's going to walk you through how to use Primo, how to use LibKey, and we'll talk about LibKey in a minute, how to use Google Scholar, RefWorks, Interlibrary Loan. And again, I do tuck in all the other video tutorials within this guide. There is also a guide specifically for Divinity. This is a massive guide. I absolutely would encourage you to explore it. There's going to be all kinds of information there that's going to assist you in the long run. It's a combination of resources that are often used within your school. It has a tab for commentaries, certain websites that have proven themselves to be great for your field of study, bibliographies. There are even a couple of assignments that we have seen over and over and over again where students might need a little bit of extra help. And so anyway, this guide is developed for you and it is updated very regularly just to make sure that we are always on top of the best for you. And I did mention that there is a citation guide. Citation tends to be a stumbling block for a lot of folks. Just like the library website and how we enter into information has changed over the years, so have citation styles. They get updated every couple of years, and it's something that's challenging to keep up with. Because of that, we do provide a guide that will point you in the right direction of resources. But the best resource is actually going to be the Center for Student Happiness. They have writing tutors within their academic coaching department. They're the best. They are going to be your number one go-to if you have citation questions. All right. RefWorks. I know a lot of you have seen whenever you do a Primo search that there's this little RW icon underneath each one of the results. And that stands for RefWorks. RefWorks is simply a citation management system. It's a filing system, nothing more, nothing less. It's a great tool. I will be the first to say it's not the be all end all. There are lots of different options out there. There's Zotero, there's Mendeley, there's homegrown. You can create your own system if that works for you. It really, really does not matter which system to use. However, RefWorks, we promote RefWorks for two reasons. One, it is owned by the same company that owns Primo. Therefore, they interact beautifully, seamlessly with each other. So that is why there's that icon there, because it is one of their particular products. But the second reason, this is probably a bit more important, RefWorks is the only citation management system that allows you to keep your account after you graduate, and it's free. I believe that they've done the best job of recognizing that just because students graduate doesn't mean that they're done being researchers. In fact, you'll probably find yourself as you are doing research, collecting a mountain of information that you really want to explore in depth later. It may not have anything to do with your dissertation or your thesis, but it's still interesting. And you definitely want to be able to access it later. So using RefWorks for that is a really good way of keeping that material available to you. When you graduate, your access to databases is restricted significantly. And that is not a university decision. That's actually individual vendors. That's part of the contracts that we have with them. Information is very expensive, and they don't want to give it to people that are not students. So unfortunately, that's the world we live in. But if you use RefWorks or, again, some kind of homegrown system of your choosing, if you download the entire text of resources, such as, an article or a dissertation, and you re-upload it to RefWorks, then it's yours forever. You don't have to worry about access. But keep in mind that when you use RefWorks, it only saves what you tell it. So if you only save a citation, that's all you've got. But if you decide to go, the extra step and download the resource and then re-upload it into RefWorks, then you do have the full text. And again, it is yours forever. All righty. This is just a screenshot of my own RefWorks account, just so you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like. Again, it's a filing system, not even that fancy. And you'll notice that I've got a YouTube link at the top that is to a very brief tutorial on how to set up your RefWorks page. You can find that tutorial and all the other tutorials underneath research tools and then under instructional videos from the library homepage. And that's going to jump you to our YouTube page where we have everything listed, anywhere from the 2-3 minute long tutorials all the way up to our recorded workshops. I had briefly mentioned LibKey. LibKey is a pretty neat resource. I don't get super enthusiastic about a lot of things when it comes to, the latest, greatest tools, because there are a lot of them, but LibKey is actually pretty neat. And again, there is a YouTube video tutorial. It's like 3 minutes long. It literally takes longer to watch the video than it does to set your computer up with it. But what LibKey does is it scours the internet for resources that we actually have. So you're looking at a Wikipedia page right now, and I slid all the way down to the resource list. And everywhere you see this little green flame and bar is letting you know that Regent University owns a resource. You can just click it and it'll take you directly to that resource. So it's a pretty neat linking tool. It works theoretically in all websites. specifically, I think that is probably most useful when you're looking at something like Wikipedia. Or if you're in Amazon and you feel like you need to purchase a book, if you see this little flame pop up, that means we already own it. And if you want to borrow it, you can do that instead. Google Scholar. Um, I do not like Google Scholar. I don't like Google, period. Anything that's algorithmically based is problematic because what that does is eventually it's going to start giving you very biased results based on what it thinks that you want, and that's based on your search history. I have a problem with that because that's not pure research. Personally, I actually don't even use Google as my browser. I use DuckDuckGo, simply because it's not algorithmically based. However, Google Scholar really does have a place in research if you are careful in how you use it. Do keep in mind, Google Scholar is a business, and the goal of the business is to make money. So it's not going to care if it gives you results that require, $79 to access, some kind of paywall. It doesn't care. It's just going to basically give you what you've asked for it. You can avoid a lot of those paywall issues if you link Google Scholar to Regent University Library. And the way you do that is you go to Google Scholar, you click the little hamburger menu and go all the way down to the word settings. Click settings, then library links, and you type in Regent University Library, search it and save it. And that is all you have to do. And every time you go back into Google Scholar looking for something, if we have it, you'll know it. On the right-hand side, it'll say view it at regent.edu. And that's going to, again, save you quite a bit of heartache trying to access really good information. Okay, AI. Obviously, this is a super hot topic. It's something that is like, trying to pin down a moving target. It's just challenging. With that, though, the university has devoted quite a bit of time and energy into the scholarly use of AI, what's acceptable, what is ethically okay. In fact, all of last year, I was part of the AI task force for academia. And what we talked about were the things like policy. When is it okay for a student to use AI? When is it okay for a faculty member to use AI? What's taking it too far? If we are using it, how do we cite it? So all of these different questions were discussed, along with looking at different resources. And in that whole process, we experimented with quite a few different things and have landed on something that seems to be pretty good. Faculty members have access to Claude AI, which is based on academic use. It's a scholarly version, basically, of AI. What's great about it is that it is based on a response to how quickly ChatGPT was developed. The developers of ChatGPT, quite a few of them left, and they created Claude instead. It was kind of a response saying that ChatGPT went too fast and it was not secure enough. And so they wanted to create something that had more of a lasting value and something that could guarantee security. So anyway, that is what the university is using this particular, season. I'm sure that we are going to take another hard look at it, over this year and potentially make some tweaks. But for now, the best advice I can give you is that while we do have a policy on AI use, it's pretty generic. And it basically says that if you are allowed to use it, make sure you're citing it. The if component is important. Every individual faculty member has the right to decide if their students should be using AI in their class. So definitely look at every single one of your syllabi to make sure that you understand what your professor is or is not allowing. I cannot stress that enough. If you don't see it in your syllabus, reach out and ask. It is very important to make sure that you are crystal clear in what you can and cannot do for your particular professor. All righty. So as promised, we are going to move into a question and answer period. Before we do that, I wanted you to see this page. There are lots of ways to get in contact with a librarian. We have the ability for you to make an appointment, and this is what I've been stressing all along. One-on-one appointments are fantastic, and you would do that with this little green button. You can call us. You can submit a question. You can email us. There are lots of different ways of doing it. There's also a button for 24/7 chat. Now, just a word of caution, 24/7 chat does not mean that a Regent University librarian is always going to be manning that chat. We do man it during like normal work hours. So anywhere between 8 and 5 o'clock, Monday through Friday, one of us is probably going to be manning it, unless we're in a meeting. However, it really is 24/7. So if we're not available to answer a question, another qualified librarian from somewhere around the world is going to pick up your chat and talk with you. And if they will be qualified, they can answer the vast majority of your questions. They do have access to our systems. So they really can help quite a bit. But if they can't fully answer your question, that's not a worry. What they do is they create a ticket and they send it to us. And then as soon as we are able to stop whatever we're doing, we'll go to your ticket and we'll respond to it. So it's just a great way of making sure that you have a librarian at your disposal. I mean, 2 o'clock in the morning when you're working and we're sleeping, it's a great option. All righty. Here's also my direct contact information. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to also stop the recording. And now I'd like to open up to your questions.